Hello students, welcome to Sri classes. We'll continue with lecture number 2, and in today we are going to discuss isotopes of carbon, allotropes of carbon, versatile nature of carbon, and saturated and unsaturated hydrocarbons, which are carbon compounds. So let us begin with isotopes. What are isotopes? Isotopes are the elements having same atomic number but different atomic mass number. So what are isotopes? Isotopes are the elements having same atomic number but different atomic mass numbers. Why there is a change in atomic mass number? Atomic mass number varies because of the change in number of neutrons present in the nucleus. So there are three types of widely known isotopes of carbon: 6C12, 6C13 and 6C14. Here if you look at protons, electrons and neutrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons, therefore total mass number is protons plus neutrons, which is 12 atomic mass units. Here there are 6 protons and 7 neutrons, and here 6 protons and 8 neutrons. So atomic mass number is basically the number of protons plus neutrons, which is number of nucleons, isn't it? So if you look at the natural abundancy of these isotopes, natural abundancy means out of what is the availability, the percentage availability of these different isotopes. If you look at in nature, 98.9% available carbon is 6C12 type. So this isotope is almost, or majority of the carbon that is available in the nature is in the form of 6C12. I hope that is very clear for you. 6C13, this is only 1.1%, very less, but of course it is stable. Whereas 6C14, if you look at the natural abundancy, it is almost very rare, you can say, very rarely available. But the peculiarity of this is it is radioactive and used to determine the carbon date testing. If you want to determine the age of all these old temples or old materials and all, we carry out the carbon date testing. And in order to carry out the carbon date testing, we use the isotope of carbon, which is 6C14. Availability in nature is very rare. Whereas if you look at 6C12, which is 98.9% available in nature, this is used as a reference standard for measurement of atomic mass units. Already you know that atomic mass number is of all the elements is measured with reference to the carbon 12 isotope, and that carbon 12 isotope is nothing but 6C12. Is it clear? So make a note of this one. Now let us have a look at allotropy and what are the allotropes of carbon. What is this allotropy basically? An element can exist in more than different forms, and that property is called allotropy. For example, carbon can exist in 3 different forms. Graphite is one form, diamond is another form, and fullerenes, this is another form. So what is the difference here? What is that is making the difference here? Arrangement of carbon atoms is the one that is, or the structure is the one that makes the difference. If the structure is different, generally the physical properties are different, and therefore the change in structure is leading to availability of one particular element in different forms, and that property is called allotropy. So allotropy is the property by virtue of which an element can exist in more than one form and which have similar chemical properties but different physical properties, and the different physical properties are due to the structure of a particular substance. The structure of the arrangement of atoms in a particular structure. So the different in properties are due to change in structure, that is arrangement of atoms. For example, if you look at allotropes of carbon, graphite, diamond and fullerenes, these are the main allotropes of carbon. Let us have a look at the structure a little bit in detail. First one is a graphite structure. See here, look at this structure. This is a graphite structure. This is in the form of hexagonal shape. All these arrangements are in the form of hexagonal shapes. Also, can you see here, this is one layer and this is another layer. These two layers are held by weak van der Waals forces, weak forces of attraction, and these weak forces of attraction are called van der Waals forces. Now, if you look at the structure of this graphite, that is the arrangement of carbon atoms, here you can see, here and here you can very clearly see each carbon atom. Here, this particular thing you can look at. Each carbon atom is bonded to 3 of the neighboring carbon atoms. If I consider this one, it is bonded to this carbon atom, this carbon atom and this carbon atom. So each carbon atom is attached to or bonded to 3 neighboring carbon atoms, and that is leading to a shape called hexagonal. And therefore, see, the carbon is forming an hexagonal array here, hexagonal array in the form of different layers, This is one hexagonal array, this is another hexagonal array, and these two arrays are once again placed one over the other in the form of layers. So what is the structure of graphite? Each carbon atom in graphite structure is bonded to 3 neighboring carbon atoms in the same plane, giving an hexagonal array, and these arrays are being placed in the form of layers, that is one over the other, and those are held by weak van der Waals forces, and because of which these layers are loosely bound and very slippery also. You got it? If you take a graphite pencil and you can rub with 2 fingers the tip of the graphite pencil, you find that very slippery. Something like this, if you do and do like this, it is very slippery, isn't it? And that is due to the structure, which is an hexagonal array. It forms an hexagonal array, and these arrays are arranged one over the other in the form of layers, and those layers are held by weak forces of attraction, because of which those are slippery in nature. They can slip. And the graphite has a black opaque hexagonal crystals. If you look at the graphite minutely, the microscopic observation, in that case you can find that these are black crystals which are hexagonal crystals, opaque hexagonal crystals. So this is the structure of carbon. Very important is each carbon atom is attached to or bonded with 3 neighboring carbon atoms to form a hexagonal array, and these arrays are arranged in the form of different layers, which are held by weak electrostatic force of attraction, which are also called van der Waals forces. And because of this weak bonding between the layers, the graphite structure is slippery in nature. So let us go to the diamond now. Next, here the diamond, let us look at the structure here. If you look at this carbon atom, it is attached to 4 neighboring carbon atoms. Each carbon atom is bonded to 4 neighboring carbon atoms to form a 3-dimensional structure called tetrahedron. The name of the structure that is observed in diamond is tetrahedron. So each carbon atom is bonded to 4 neighboring carbon atoms to form a 3-dimensional structure which is called a tetrahedron. And this 3-dimensional structure is very rigid structure, and therefore diamond is very hard. Diamond is the hardest naturally occurring substance. So this is what you can see here. And also you can see one more thing, diamonds can be synthesized, which we call American diamonds and all. Those are nothing but which are manufactured. Synthesized means those are manufactured. How do you manufacture that one? Those can be synthesized by subjecting pure carbon to a very high temperature and high pressure. By subjecting pure carbon to very high temperature and high pressure, it is possible to synthesize artificial diamonds. So I hope this structure you have understood. Each carbon atom in diamond is bonded to 4 other carbon atoms, forming a rigid 3-dimensional structure called a tetrahedron, and diamond is the hardest naturally occurring substance. Okay, so make a note of this. Next allotropic form of carbon is fullerenes. The name is very special name, isn't it? Fullerene. What is this fullerene? We'll try to understand. First of all, fullerenes, look at the structure. How does it look like? Does it look like a football? Yes, it is something like a football structure. And why the name fullerene? Let us read this paragraph and try to understand. Very interesting. Fullerenes were discovered by Kurt, Kroto and Smalley. Who discovered? Kurt, Kroto and Smalley. These are the 3 scientists who discovered this fullerenes. Why the name given as fullerene? Let us see that. Very interesting. C60 was the first one to be identified. Atoms are arranged in the shape of a football. In these fullerenes, atoms are arranged in the shape of a football, and they looked like the geodesic dome designed by US architect Buckminster Fuller, and therefore the molecule was named fullerene. See, in USA there is a stadium called National Geodesic Dome, and the shape of that is similar to this shape, and the architect who designed that particular National Geodesic Dome was Mr. Buckminster Fuller, and therefore who was an US architect, and therefore the name for such structure is given as fullerenes. I hope you are able to understand. So see, the fullerenes are the carbon atoms are in fullerenes. Carbon atoms are arranged in the shape of a football, and which looks like the National Geodesic Dome that was designed by the architect Buckminster, US architect basically, Buckminster Fuller, and therefore the name for such structure is given as fullerenes. C60 and C70 are the fullerenes which have been discovered. So I hope you understand this also. You may get a question on the explanation of the different allotropes in terms of the structure and the names also. Okay, so make sure that you know it very well. Okay, next one. Versatile nature of carbon. Here, what is this versatile nature of carbon? Let us try to understand. I think next slide we will go and then come back. No, not here. Here itself. Okay. See, in the beginning of the chapter we have seen the natural abundancy of carbon, 0.01%, 0.03%. In nature, the availability of carbon is very, very less. Whereas we have also seen the importance of carbon in our day-to-day lives. That is, we have seen that carbon is used in paper, cloths, textiles, medicines, petroleum fuels, etc. It is one of the major and important ingredients of these compounds. And therefore, if you look at the number of compounds found by the carbon, nearly it is 3 million plus. So far, the scientists are able to identify the structures of more than 3 million carbon compounds. Can you imagine more than 3 million carbon compounds. How it is possible to have such a large number of compounds of carbon, whereas in the periodic table no other element can have so many large number of compounds, but carbon, it is possible. Why it is so? And that is because of versatile nature of carbon. So what is that versatility of the carbon? Let us study that. Carbon forms large number of compounds due to following two factors. Important, these are the two factors because of which carbon is able to form a very large number of compounds: catenation and tetravalency. Here of course you can add one more parameter which is called isomerism. We'll study isomers, and probably you can add later also as one of the factors for having large number of compounds. That means isomerism can also be one of the factors along with these two to say that carbon forms a large number of compounds. Now let us understand what are these two properties, catenation and tetravalency. First one, catenation. Carbon has unique ability to form bonds with other carbon atoms, giving rise to large number of long chain molecules, and this property is called catenation. There is an alternate definition for this, which is a simple one. Self-linking ability of carbon to form long chain molecules is called catenation. That means, can we join 10 carbon atoms? Yes, possible. Can we join 100 carbon atoms or 100 carbon atoms? Yes, possible. That means what it says is, what is this property is self-linking ability of carbon. That means carbon atoms can be linked together to form a very long chain molecules. So that self-linking ability of carbon to form a very long chain molecules is called catenation. Or also you can say like this, it has unique ability to form bonds with other carbon atoms that leads to a large number of long chain molecules, and that property is called catenation. A question arises, is carbon is the only element which can make a long chain molecules by attaching with itself? If you look at sulfur, sulfur also can form a long chain molecules. There are other compounds also which can make long chain compounds, but not to the extent to which the carbon can form a long chain molecules, because the bond strength between carbon atoms is very high compared to the bond strength between sulfur atoms, or for that matter any other element. The bond strength between the atoms is very less compared to the carbon in order to form the long chains. Like silicon also forms, but not as long chains, which see the longer chain should be stable enough, means those should be, the molecule should be stable enough, whereas if you simply form a long chain, probably it may break and leads to some more compounds. That should not happen. So only carbon has that unique ability where the self-linking ability is there, and of course it can form a very large number of long chain compounds, long chain molecules. So that property is called a catenation. And here I hope you understood why other compounds are not able to form, because the bond strength is not as high as in carbon, and therefore other elements cannot form long chain molecules in comparison with carbon. Okay, that is what it is given. Next, what is tetravalency? If you look at, we have already discussed the valency of carbon. Carbon has 4 valency. The valency of the carbon is 4, which we compared with 4 arms, isn't it? That means it can join with 4 neighboring atoms, either carbon itself, or it can link with other atoms such as nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, and halogens also, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, etc. And therefore, the tetravalency has enabled carbon to join with 4 neighboring different types of atoms. And therefore, because of the tetravalency and catenation, carbon is able to form a large number of different types of compounds. And you can imagine, already scientists have identified the structure of more than 3 billion compounds. Quite remarkable, isn't it? So let me read once again this tetravalency. Since carbon has 4 valence electrons, it is capable of bonding with 4 other carbon atoms as well as with oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur and halogens. Chlorine, bromine, fluorine, iodine, etc. are halogens. These 2 unique features enables carbon to form large number of compounds. Added to this, you can add point number C, as I said, isomerism. What is isomerism? Isomerism are the compounds having same molecular formula but different structural formula. Due to change in structural formula, their physical properties may change, and therefore isomers important, same molecular formula but different structural formula. Those also leads to a large number of compounds. Okay, so I hope you have understood what is the versatile nature of carbon. Next, we'll see. Here there is a question: why does carbon form large number of stable compounds? So the answer to this question is very interesting. Please look at that. Carbon has a small atomic size. See, when I say a small atomic size, you can source the atomic size of carbon in relation to the period number 2, lithium, beryllium, boron, etc. Across the period from left to right, when we move, atomic size decreases. In periodic table, period number 2 is having lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, and one more. Where is the periodic table? One more is there, neon. Okay, so amongst all these things, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, neon, carbon is in group 14. Lithium, beryllium, boron are in bigger sizes, and carbon comes next. Means across the period 2, across the period from left to right, if you look at, the size of the carbon atom decreases, and therefore I will say carbon has a small atomic size, and which enables the nucleus to hold the shared pair of electrons. The shared pair of electrons, or the shared valence electrons also, you can say, hold on the shared pair of electrons strongly, and also due to catenation and tetravalency, carbon forms large number of stable compounds. To answer this, first of all, it forms large number of compounds because of catenation and tetravalency. That is one thing. But what is that is leading to the stability of the atom? For the stability of the atoms, the shared pair of electrons or the shared electrons need to be held in place by the strong force of attraction by the nucleus, and that is possible in carbon, and therefore size is also small. So if the size is small, then definitely the force of attraction is more, and hence shared pair of electrons can be held in place, in position. So I hope you have understood this question. Next, saturated and unsaturated carbon compounds. See, the carbon compounds are also called hydrocarbons. How do you define hydrocarbons? Compounds containing only carbon and hydrogen are called hydrocarbons. Compounds containing carbon and hydrogen only are called hydrocarbons. In that hydrocarbons, you have saturated hydrocarbons and unsaturated hydrocarbons. Let us have a look at what is saturated hydrocarbon and unsaturated hydrocarbon. First one, saturated hydrocarbons. Compounds of carbon having single bond between carbon atoms is called saturated carbon compounds. Take for example methane and ethane. Methane and ethane, in all these things, if you look at carbon to carbon, the bond, we represent it by only one line, one bond. One bond represents one pair of shared electrons. If carbon atoms are joined together by a single bond, in that case, we say those compounds are saturated hydrocarbons. What are the examples for this one? Alkanes are the examples for saturated hydrocarbons. See, alkanes, alkenes and alkynes we are going to study further. For the time being, just try to remember the names here. Alkanes are the examples of saturated hydrocarbons. These are normally less reactive in nature. Those are not very reactive, those are normally less reactive in nature. Examples are methane, ethane, etc. Sometimes we call these alkanes as paraffins also. Paraffins means waxy nature, wax. So these are the products which look like waxes. Here you can see, small tablets of waxes. So alkanes are also called paraffins, and generally this is nothing but a wax-like structure, a substance, wax substance, waxy substance you can say. So saturated hydrocarbons are the compounds of carbon having single bond between carbon atoms, and those are normally less reactive. Examples are alkanes, remember, which are also called paraffins. Let us try to remember two examples here, methane and ethane. The molecular formula of methane is CH4. What is the bonding between the carbon atom and hydrogen atom? Here you can see, of course here there is only one carbon atom, but all these bonds are single covalent bond. Anyway, this also comes under saturated hydrocarbon. But if you look at this one, ethane, see here, between two carbon atoms there is a single bond. Is it not a single bond? Yes. And there is a single bond between two carbon atoms. Of course all these are also single covalent bonds, that's okay. But if the bond between carbon atoms is single bond, then these are called alkanes basically. See, for the definition of alkanes there is one more criteria also, that is the alkanes should be derived from a particular general formula, and that general formula is CnH2n plus 2, which you are going to study. If I put n is equal to 1, I get the first compound CH4, which is also a saturated compound. But generally for saturated compounds, if you look at the carbon-carbon bond, except this methane over here, which is also a saturated compound, but in order to understand that there is a single bond between carbon and carbon, start looking at those compounds having carbon atoms more than one. So in ethane you have two carbons, propane you have three, methane, ethane, propane, butane, pentane, hexane. Like this the carbon compounds vary based on the number of carbon atoms. So between carbon atoms, if there is a single bond, if there is only one pair of shared electrons, then such bonds or such compounds are called saturated compounds, which are normally less reactive. So look at the structure of ethane. This is the best example for saturated hydrocarbons to give. This is the best example to give as an example for saturated hydrocarbons. See, there are two carbon atoms having a single bond. So ethane, this is called ethane. Molecular formula is C2H6, and if there is one bond over here, its valency is 4. There are 4 arms. One arm is used to bind between the two carbon atoms, and another 3 arms can hold hydrogen, hydrogen, hydrogen. Here also this carbon has 4 arms. One it is used here, that is one valency is used. Another 3 valencies are used to hold another 3 hydrogen atoms. So CH3 is the molecular formula, or it is also C2H6 here, the molecular formula. It is called ethane. And if you look at the Lewis dot structure of this ethane over here, carbon, carbon, and 1, 2, 3, these 3 hydrogen atoms, and 1, 2, 3, these 3 hydrogen atoms. These 3 hydrogen atoms share their electrons with this carbon atom. These 3 hydrogen atoms share their electrons with this carbon atom. And of course, one electron is also shared between these two carbon atoms, because there is only one bond here, one pair of electrons are shared, one from this carbon and another from this carbon. So this is called ethane, and this is a bond structure, and this is a Lewis dot structure. You will be asked in the exams to represent such compounds either in the bond form, that is the bond structure, or electron dot structure. So you must be familiar with all these things, and you must practice also. Without practice, organic chemistry, it is very difficult. आप लोगों को बहुत practice करना पड़ेगा. Writing, reading all these molecules, their electron dot structures, their bond structures, etc. Okay, fine. I hope you have understood here. Methane, ethane, or alkanes, which are also called paraffins, are the saturated hydrocarbons, which are generally less reactive. Fine. Next is unsaturated hydrocarbons. Compounds of carbon having double or triple bond between carbon atoms are called unsaturated carbon compounds or unsaturated carbon hydrocarbons. Normally they are more reactive than saturated hydrocarbons. So what is the main criteria for unsaturated hydrocarbons? Between carbon atoms there must be double bond or triple bond. If that is the case, look at this, the requirement. Between two carbon atoms there must be a double bond, or between two carbon atoms there must be a triple bond. Two bonds represented by two lines which indicate two pairs of shared electrons. Three bonds represent three pairs of shared electrons. Examples are alkenes, which are also called olefins, and ethene is the first compound of alkenes, is an example for unsaturated hydrocarbon. What is that ethene here? The molecular formula of ethene is C2H4. Between two carbon atoms there are two bonds, another two valencies are left. Fill up those valencies by hydrogen. Hydrogen 1 here, another hydrogen. For this carbon atom also, these are the two bonds or two valencies, and another two valencies which are left are attached to hydrogen atom. Thus the valency of the carbon is satisfied. There are four valencies. Two valencies are used to join two carbon atoms. One valency to join hydrogen here, one valency to join hydrogen here. Here also one valency to join hydrogen, another valency to join hydrogen. So are we getting four valencies when I count with respect to each carbon atom? Let us see. For this carbon atom, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, four valencies, four arms, four bonds. For this carbon atom, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, valencies are matched. The four valencies meaning it has ability to join to the neighboring four atoms, isn't it? In that case, totally 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we should count the valency. That means after joining the carbon to carbon either with a single bond or with a double bond or with a triple bond, the remaining valencies should be counted in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That way the remaining bonds should be attached to the hydrogen atoms. That is how we form the bond structure. So I hope you have understood the example of alkene. Alkenes come under unsaturated hydrocarbons because between carbon atoms there is a double bond. The example is ethene. The molecular formula is C2H4, and this is the bond structure, and this is the electron dot structure. If you look at these two carbon atoms here this carbon atom will share its two electrons with this carbon atom, which also will share its two electrons. So totally 4 electrons, two pairs of shared electrons or two bonds, and here one remaining electron will form a bond with hydrogen, another remaining electron will form bond with the hydrogen, and similar case for this carbon atom also. Therefore, if you look at this structure, there are two pairs over here which are shared electrons, and this is a single pair, single pair, single pair, single pair, and therefore between two carbon atoms double bond, and between carbon and hydrogen single bond. Okay. Now alkynes are also the examples of unsaturated hydrocarbons. Why it is so? Because between carbon atoms there are 3 bonds. If there is a 1 bond, saturated hydrocarbon. If 2 bonds, unsaturated hydrocarbons called alkenes. If there are 3 bonds, unsaturated hydrocarbons called alkynes. Alkynes or alkyne. Alkynes is a plural. Now, what is the example for alkynes, which are also called acetylenes? In general, acetylenes, like saturated hydrocarbons are called paraffins. Alkanes are called paraffins. Alkenes are called olefins. Similarly, alkynes are called acetylenes. Okay. Example is ethine here. Ethine. Here it is ethene. Here it is ethine. ETHYNE. Ethine. What is the molecular formula? C2H2. How do you draw the bond structure? Draw one carbon and another carbon. Between these 2 carbon atoms, there are 3 bonds here. 1, 2, 3, and 4th bond is with hydrogen. For this carbon also 1, 2, 3, and 4th bond is with hydrogen. And this is the bond structure of ethine. If you look at the electronic dot structure, this is how it is represented. Between 2 carbon atoms, if there are 3 bonds, meaning 3 into 2, 6 electrons should be there, or 3 pairs of electrons should be there. First pair, second pair, third pair. One pair 2 electrons, another pair 2, another pair 2, another pair 2. So totally 6 electrons. 2 plus 2 plus 2, 6 electrons. 6 electrons means 3 pair of shared electrons. And therefore, 1 pair represents 1 bond, 3 pairs represent 3 bonds. So here you can find totally 3 pairs of electrons, and 1 pair over here and 1 pair over here. This is how you can find the electronic dot structure, which is also called the Lewis dot structure for ethine. This is called ethine. So please make a note of all these things. This is the end of lecture number 2. I hope you have understood all the today's topics. Very importantly, what we discussed today is the isotopes and their availability, that is the natural abundance of the isotopes. Then we defined what are allotropes. That means the property by virtue of which an element can exist in more than one form, that is called a allotropy. And then the versatile nature of carbon we saw. Before that, in the allotropes we found mainly 3 allotropes, that is graphite, then fullerenes and diamond structure. We understood the different structures also, that is what is the structure of graphite, hexagonal array arranged in the form of layers. And then we saw the structure of diamond, which is a 3-dimensional rigid structure called tetrahedron. And also we studied the fullerenes, the structure of which looks like a football, and that was designed by the US architect called Buckminster Fuller, and hence the name of the molecule was fullerene. And of course the fullerenes were first discovered by Kurt Kroto and Smalley, that also we studied. And finally saturated and unsaturated hydrocarbons, in which before that I think we studied the versatile nature of carbon, that is why carbon is able to form a very large number of compounds, long chain compounds. More than 3 million compounds have been identified by the scientists. Why it is possible? That is possible mainly because of the 2 reasons according to your textbook given. That is, one is catenation and tetravalency. Catenation is nothing but the self-linking ability of carbon to form a long chain molecules. Okay, or carbon has an unique ability to form bonds with neighboring carbon atoms to give rise to a long chain molecules, and that property is called catenation. And tetravalency means the valency of carbon is 4, meaning carbon can form a bond with 4 neighboring atoms, either with carbon itself or with hetero atoms such as hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, halogens. And therefore it can form a very large number of compounds because of mainly 2 reasons, that is catenation and tetravalency. You can add isomerism also for that. And finally we saw what are unsaturated and saturated hydrocarbons. saturated hydrocarbons are alkanes basically. Ethane was the best example which I said you can take up, that is C2H6 is the molecular formula. We studied the bond structure and dot structure also, that is Lewis dot structure. Then unsaturated hydrocarbons, and unsaturated hydrocarbons are the one in which between carbon atoms either there exists a double bond or there exists a triple bond, and generally unsaturated hydrocarbons are more reactive in comparison to the saturated hydrocarbons, wherein we find only a single bond between carbon atoms. And as an examples for unsaturated hydrocarbons, we considered alkenes. In that, ethene is the one which we studied, that is the bond structure, electronic dot structure with the molecular formula C2H4, and also alkynes which also come under unsaturated hydrocarbons. Example, ethine having a triple bond between two carbon atoms, and ethine was the example, that is molecular formula with C2H4. We studied the bond structure and also the electronic dot structure. So make a note of all these things, and I hope you have understood. आप लोगों को अच्छी तरह नोट्स बनाना है. Make sure that you write properly, and you need to read the textbook also, the notes also. So in my next lecture, I'll be taking up the namings of alkanes, alkenes, alkynes, and one more group called alkyl groups, which are substituents. So see you in the next lecture. Thank you very much for watching.